Welcome to the Configure Price Quote podcast. My name is Frank Sohn and I'm the founder of CPQ Consulting. This podcast is 100% focused on Configure Price Quote, also known as CPQ, and will provide you useful insights into this topic. My guest today is Bill Barlas, co-founder and solution architect at Quick2Bit, a system integrator that was founded in 2021 and works with Xait CPQ, beyond other solutions. Bill lives in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I'm excited to have him on the CPQ podcast. Bill, welcome to the CPQ podcast.
Hi, Frank. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Very excited to have you, Bill, and let's start by telling me a little bit more about yourself and what you did before you started Quick2Bit.
Absolutely, Frank. So I have about 10 years of professional experience working in the CPQ industry. Every job I've ever had since the first one somehow was related to CPQ, even before I really knew what the acronym was. So I started out my career in the energy efficiency space, and I was making spreadsheets that were used by people out in the field to collect information about energy efficiency savings, calculate those savings, and then generate a report. And so, that was really early in my CPQ journey, but, in a lot of ways, what I do for my customers really is very similar to that, just with much more sophisticated and capable technology now. I spent a few years at that company, and then I moved into the manufacturing space, where I worked on a SAP CPQ project, working with large industrial equipment. It was boilers, so industrial HVAC equipment, and often used in like healthcare applications and also like food processing, things like that. They use the steam in some of those boilers to do things like cook pretzels. But anyway, all sorts of interesting stuff. And I really got my start working on my own on CPQ projects in 2018. I, at the time, was working at a commercial plumbing company. I did all of their CPQ implementation. And I started moonlighting at the same time, working with Kevin Garrity at what was then called Blueprint CPQ. I had a connection who was looking for a CPQ solution for their manufacturing company. They were about the size that Quick2Bit is now, then in 2018. And since we were just down there last week, and they've gotten huge. And a lot of it, I think, we've been able to help them with their CPQ ever since. So I got started doing that. Did a lot of consulting along the way with that customer. And then in 2021, Blueprint CPQ went through a big acquisition. They merged with Xait. And when that happened, they needed a North American partner who was trained on the software, able to help out with various customers of different sizes and types. And so they brought me in, and since I've built, in my opinion, a world-class team that is able to implement CPQ solutions. So that's sort of how I got started. I've done a lot of different projects in manufacturing. We've started branching now into the professional services industry as well. So customers who do a lot of consulting themselves oftentimes have pretty complex CPQ related needs. And we've learned a lot about how to sort of templatize that work and turn that into really great CPQ solutions. So
very cool. And we will talk much more about this in a little bit, right? What I was wondering is also along the way, what you just described, how you started Quick2Bit, right? So was there any mentor or anyone along the way who helped you building up the company, or did you do it all by yourself?
My mom helped me.
Really?
I know that sounds kind of funny, but she is a genuinely brilliant business strategist. And her and my father built a company all through the 90s and 2000s together. And so when I was getting started, she sort of had the time to help me out with this. And so I to this day, call her on the phone and say, we need a Quick2Bit strategy session. What do you think of this? Right? So huge shout out and help she's been. And then the other person that's really helped me along the way is Kevin Garrity. He took a shot on me very early. I mean, I was 26 and I was living out in California, and he was going to be in Chicago for visiting some customers then. And I said, well, I'll get on a plane, come out there and visit you, Kevin. And so we met then, and sort of the rest is history, but he's helped me along the way a lot with, both business strategy, how to run a great professional services firm, and then, just how to do business. So those two have both been really instrumental in my development as a leader and as a business owner, and also in the CPQ industry. So yeah.
That's very cool, and it's a first, right? So because I think nobody mentioned their mother before, so that which I think is seriously is cool. And then
Yep.
Kevin, regular podcast listeners probably know him. He is the CEO of Xait CPQ, as Bill mentioned, right? So, and we had several interviews with him over the years. We have a report about his solution and so on. So, very interesting, very cool. Now, before we talk more about Quick to Bit, what do you do when you don't work, Bill?
Yeah, absolutely. I have three young children at home, so I do that,
Yeah.
which is, probably the only thing I'll ever do that means anything to me. So they're wonderful. I've got a 10, a 5, and a 2, and I'm married, and we're doing a family. I also do a little bit of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is kind of like a wrestling thing. I like martial arts a lot, so I'm doing that too, going to morning classes. So yeah, all good things. So
Man,
yeah.
that's keeping you busy. Three kids, they probably all do sports, I guess, right?
Oh
Or
yeah.
some kind of activities. So
Oh yeah.
what do they do? What do you like to do with them?
We have a violin player
Yeah.
who is very serious about her violin playing, and our 10-year-old.
Yeah.
And she's also actually about to get her black belt in Taekwondo. So that's pretty cool. And then my 5-year-old is starting her piano lessons now. We're sort of getting started with that. They're both homeschooled, so we spend a lot of time together. I work kind of an interesting schedule doing what I do. And so, I work really heavily in the mornings usually, and I'm home more in the afternoons. So, which has been great for sort of running them around. And then my little guy is still too little for playing around. He's 2. So you know, we just spend time together. So it's
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Got it. So it never gets boring at your house, I guess,
No,
right? That's what you're saying. So
absolutely
not
not.
much time beside the family to do something with all the sports and stuff and the activities of the kids. Good. So then let's talk about your probably where you spent most of your time at Quick to Bit, right? So tell me a little bit more. What services and potentially products do you offer with Quick to Bit?
Absolutely. So we service our ideal client is one of two things. It's either a mid-market customer that is in the manufacturing space, right? Mid-market to me might mean something different than to other people. So I'll clarify that point. It's customers or clients with revenues ranging from about 50 million to about $500 million. Okay. Those clients, if they sell through a sales rep channel, or through a third-party distribution channel that requires those complex quotes to be written, that helps a lot with our ability to help them, right? Because when you really look at CPQ, one of the things that it is, and I think it's not commonly ignored, but it's something to be really to consider, is that it's about self-service. It's about a customer, either internal or external, being able to get a quote, get a price, right? That's an important element of CPQ. And so that's one of our, sort of ideal customer profiles. Another ideal customer profile for us, which is wildly different, but it came from all the experience that we've had with Xait, is enterprise customers. So customers over $1 billion in revenue. Again, let Salesforce call enterprise whatever they want. This is what I'm calling it, right? So over $1 billion in revenue that sell professional services. So we have a consultative offer and then also a implementation offer that focuses around how can we help these customers that sell professional services, how do I even say it? Apply SKUs to their services, basically. So, you can sell an avocado with a SKU, but you can also, it turns out, sell a professional service with a SKU, right? So being able to quote properly a fixed fee project, a time and materials project, a hybrid of those two, what exactly you're going to be doing, who the resources are, all of this stuff, it mirrors significantly the manufacturing processes that manufacturing customers do, right? And so, but instead of passing data into an MRP for manufacturing, you're passing it into a professional services management tool to be booked and have resources booked in. And so, we've sort of been able to mirror the concepts that come from manufacturing that have made manufacturing so successful into the professional services space and really improve processes for these large customers who do a lot of consulting work. So that's our other, big like target area, and a customer group that we feel really confident in serving.
Got it. And you work mostly in North America, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Nearly exclusively.
Got it. And do you offer also any proprietary products that help you to implement the solution faster or anything similar to that?
I wouldn't say that we offer any products. We do definitely have execution frameworks in place, right? So how we go about one of these projects from the initial impact assessment with a client, right? So we have a prospect come in, we help a little bit with the consultative aspect of, sometimes we'll do a little bit of product selection, but mostly we're recommending Xait. But it's how we do the project planning, how we do the specification, all of that stuff. So it's not really a proprietary product. It's more of a process that's been proven to work for a end-to-end implementation of a CPQ. That makes sense?
It does. It does. So how many employees do you have at this time?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are four full-timers, including myself. We are bringing on a full-time project manager, hopefully in the next few weeks, which is going to be a great addition. I just interviewed somebody who I absolutely love for the role, so I'm hoping that it works out. And then we have 6 contractors as well that are working on various projects. And all but 2 are US-based resources, and the 2 that are not are based in the UK. So we're an onshore team effectively. And so, yeah, and the 6 contractors that I'm talking about, they're not really onesie twosie. It's more like 15 to 20 hours a week type of work.
Got it. And you mentioned before now a couple of times, right, that you work closely with Xait. Tell me how you do that. How do you work with them on a week-to-week, month-by-month basis?
Absolutely. So we work with them in various ways. I have some inbound. So I'll have customers come to me that are interested in implementing a CPQ solution, right? And I'll recommend Xait as the solution and bring that capability or bring that prospect to Xait. We'll co-sell, work together on the opportunity, kind of coach the client through, and then we'll take on the full implementation. We also there are other situations where maybe Xait will need our support as we are the US-based sort of arm of their implementation. And in those cases, you'll work directly with Xait, and you'll basically get the quick to bid team if you're working in North America.
Got it. And beside Xait, do you work with any other partners?
We do, yes, absolutely. We are heavily involved in the HubSpot ecosystem. So HubSpot does not have a native CPQ solution, but we do a lot of CRM related consulting now with HubSpot. They are experiencing huge growth sort of into that mid-market that we were talking about. And so their ideal customer profile is overlapping now with ours. So we do a lot of CRM implementation there, and also we do some CPQ stuff. We're also a partner of another small. They're not a small company, but their CPQ solution is small in PandaDoc. So the way you can look at it, Frank, is HubSpot Quotes is like a smart car. Then you've got PandaDoc. It's like maybe an F-150. It's a mid-sized truck, right? And then Xait is like a semi. So you'll have you'll have different needs, and those different needs, we have solutions for all of them, basically.
Looking for a fast, reliable way to get up to speed on Configure Price Quote? The CPQ Briefing subscription delivers analyst-grade insight in minutes, no marketing noise, just facts. Right now, you unlock 11 concise briefing documents covering leading CPQ platforms and key add-ons. For more are in final review, and 20-plus additional briefings will roll out by mid-September, so the library keeps growing every week. Each briefing distills capabilities, roadmap signals, and buyer watchouts into a 5-minute read you can act on immediately. Discover how simple CPQ research can be. Visit novicecpq.com/cpq-briefing-subscription and start exploring today. Clear, practical guidance is just a click away.
When you do implement the solution, you do probably also quite a bit of customization of the solution, right? So, you have to balance it, I feel, with out-of-the-box functionality. How do you do that for your customers?
Yeah. So we go to out of the box first, wherever and whenever possible. Although that's true, every customer that we've ever had resulted in a different solution than the last one, right? We've never sold the exact same thing twice, right? And so part of our process really is to treat this, although it is heavy on the configuration, kind of more like a software development project from the program management perspective, right? And so we have sort of a work stream for configuration, another work stream for integration, and then another one for, true product customization, right? And so from a customer perspective, my goal is that it's still seamless, and that your experience getting a customization versus a configuration is not different. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. So it's going to happen. We're almost always going to need to do something with code, and I think that meeting of enterprise CPQ or mid-market CPQ capabilities list of requirements without any customization, I would be very surprised if I was reviewing a spec and had somebody respond to it and say we can do every single thing without having to customize our software. It's an uncommon thing to have happen. So it's more about how you manage it.
I think that's fair. Now, then let's look at the demand for CPQ solutions at the moment anyway. What would you say? How is demand for you?
Absolutely. So inside the HubSpot ecosystem, demand for configurators with a capital C, not deal configuration, but product configuration, is unprecedented. So we have prospects coming in all the time that are in need of this kind of capability, right? So I would say because that ecosystem is maturing, we're seeing quite a bit of that. We had the first deal come in. It was actually yesterday, the first prospect that mentioned Salesforce CPQ and RLM and the legacy changes, like going from legacy to RLM and not being quite interested in doing that. So I think that's going to be a pretty interesting couple of years. I think that there's going to be a fair amount of evaluation from the Salesforce ecosystem as people start to think, okay, I need to go away from my managed package and into a whole new Salesforce CPQ. Should I really be doing that? So I think there's a lot of demand that's going to come from there. And then the last one, I have a lot of conversations that are like, oh my goodness, AI is coming for everything. It's going to change everything, blah, 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 right? My response to that personally is that AI is going to change how quickly you can scope and implement a CPQ. And it is probably going to change how quickly a quote can go out the door and improve that, right? What I don't think is going to go away fully, at least in the, midterm, right? If you look 5 to 10 years, I think a business rules engine still needs to exist, right? And so I don't think, like, we haven't seen any real hit to the demand for CPQ because of AI, even though I was expecting it, right? I was expecting we're going to use AI with a bunch of prompting to get this done instead. I don't find that to be the case. I think that smart executives are still seeing the need for business rules engines to be applied adjacent to their AI solutions. So we are growing. So, and I'm happy about it.
No, that's very good. Yeah, and I would agree. So AI is a completely different topic. If we talk about that, we probably would sit here until tomorrow. So let's focus on something more core to the CPQ area, and that's the C part, the configuration part, right? So what is, from your experience and the work with your customers, the most important part of the configurator?
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest thing about doing a configurator well is something that I call product data readiness, right? So what that means is, do we have bills of materials logic, right? So they talk about like 150% BOM, right? Do we have product logic about what actually fits together in place, right? So as an implementer, I'm going to answer the question as an implementer, right?
Yeah.
So when I think about this, I think about how are we going to get across the finish line of having a configurator built at all, right? And so I think it's thinking about PLM integration, whether the PLM is spreadsheets or a software solution. It's understanding where you are with your engineering change processes. Like, do you have all of that infrastructure in place so that a CPQ can plug in properly or not? That's really a core question you need to be asking yourself on your configurator journey. What I found is, although it's not easy to physically implement the business rules engine, if you've got the rules, that's a big part of the journey. So that's my answer about configurator capabilities. Is, it's more looking internal. Are we ready for this? And if not, how do we get there? So
now let's look at business requirements. What are the top 3 business requirements that you hear from your customers?
yeah, absolutely. One of them is quote velocity, right? So how fast can we get something out the door? That especially applies in the manufacturing space. In that sort of mid-market, you'll have oftentimes winning or losing results from who got the price there fastest, right? So having self-service, having a rep that can make a quote, that is a huge reason for having a CPQ, right? The other one, these are classics, Frank. So I think hopefully, but it's the truth. It's the reason why we're here, right? The next one is better accuracy in quotes and quicker onboarding times, which I think are really deeply related to each other, right? So there definitely is a transition where people are changing jobs more often, where maybe you don't have that same tribal knowledge that you used to have internal to an organization. And so being able to maintain that in a platform, I think, is really attractive to people that are doing strategy for these companies. So that's a big one. And then the other business requirement that I'm hearing, and I kind of heard you say stay away from AI, but I'm hearing, how can we get this to work with AI? Right. Every conversation, it's coming back around to that right now. So we are thinking, okay, how do we make that most successful? So.
Got it. In preparation for this call, we also looked at the different projects that you're doing. So you have time material projects and fixed price projects. And I was wondering, what's the ratio between these 2 different types of projects from your perspective?
So in terms of CPQ, we're doing mostly time and material still. For almost all of our HubSpot work is done on a fixed fee basis now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So going back also to the CPQ, right? As a lot of your projects, I guess, also have some kind of visualization in it, right? So what's the percentage for you? What would you say? What percentage of your project has some visual parts or visual requirements?
I would say actually it's surprisingly low in terms of the number of projects that have a physical visual, like a 3D visualization, baked or integrated into the tool. The thing that I am asked for the most commonly is actually drawing. So that's the thing that comes up the most often is, can we get a dimensioned drawing of the product? And I would say of the manufacturing customers that we've worked with, I can only think of one right now that is not either in the process of doing that or has done it already, to generate some kind of, usually they want a 2D. That's what they're looking for.
Yeah.
So like a dimension 2D drawing is that's what's, and I really like visualization a lot. I think it's super interesting. We have a partner that we've worked with on doing some really interesting things with it. But honestly, my favorite project is one where we integrated Xait CPQ with CDS to generate a 2D of a boiler, and that gets used every day, multiple times a day, all the time, and it's because it's what they actually needed, right? It's not as fancy, but it's what they really needed, and so,
No, I think you're absolutely right. 2D is still probably the highest demand across visualization in general, right? So it always depends who the end user is. I think for real end users, 3D is more important, right? So, but 2D, I also see still very high demand for that. You mentioned also CDS Visual. That's also one partner, right? So, do you work with other visual partners as well? I think Excite also had a partnership or was working as needed with Dynamaker. Is that? Did you work with them as well?
Yes, absolutely, Christopher. What a good guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, kudos to him. He's a smart cookie. So I would highly suggest Dynamaker for your 3D related needs always.
How about any other partners that have complementary products to the Excite CPQ solutions? Anything else that you want to mention?
Yeah, I would say it's HubSpot and Excite together are really an excellent, they're a great fit because you can do a lot of your workflows, sort of customer platform related things with HubSpot. And the other thing you can do in HubSpot is a self-service portal for end customers. So not as much for sales reps, but for end customers, where what we've done quite a bit, actually, we've got data coming in from the ERP. So order data, for example, or you're processing orders through HubSpot going into the ERP. That data is coming back into objects on HubSpot. And then we're able to actually expose that data into a customer portal that end customers can log into and see, where's my order. We've done, like, I don't know if you've ever ordered Domino's pizza, but like the little Domino's pizza tracker, things like that. And that's a big hit for our customers. And, it's also a great use case to integrate with Excite. We've done some configurators that are a little bit simpler to use for end customers so that they can get a price, get a nice quote out, and then save that information in a customer portal. That's sort of that's the stack that I'm recommending right now to my customers.
Excellent. And then let's close by giving us a short overview of how a typical Excite project looks for you, so that listeners get an understanding. How long does it typically take? What phase are you going through? Just high level.
Absolutely. So we start with a initial requirements gathering. We go through, write all of that up, turn it into a detailed specification. At that point, we do a re-estimate, because usually there's an initial estimate, and build a plan, right? Gain sign-off with the client. These projects are currently varying right now, 2 to 3 months for a small one, and some of them have turned into like a digital transformation journey. And so in that case, I'm working with one of our enterprise clients. This is year 3. I mean, they've been live, right? And we're working in phases. So right now we're doing their CPQ to PSA integration so that we can send all that booking information about resources back into their backend system. So, I'll say for a manufacturing project, 3 to 6 months. And for a large scale project, live still 3 to 6 months, but my assumption is that we'll keep working together.
Excellent. I think that should give everyone a good understanding of how a typical project looks like, high level, right? So, all very interesting, but unfortunately, we're coming to the end of this episode. Hence, my question to you, my last question really is: what's a good way for interested listeners to contact you or even meet you in person if you go to any events here in the US and for the remainder of 2025?
Absolutely. So I am super active on LinkedIn. We're live a few times a week actually right now. So if you liked what you heard here, there's more there as well. So you can add me on LinkedIn, search Bill Barlas. You can send me an email, bbarlas@quicktobid.com. And I will also be attending the HubSpot Inbound Conference in September in San Francisco. So I will see you there in Chinatown.
Excellent. So, and we will have all this information as always in the show note. Bill, thank you very much for making time for the CPQ podcast today.
Thanks, Frank.
I'd like to thank everyone for listening and hope you learned something interesting today. If you like the podcast, please go ahead and rate it on iTunes or share it with your friends and colleagues. In the meantime, you can find us online at www.novoscpq.com. So long, everyone.